Welcome to Echoes of My Imagination. My name is Tracy Lee. Sit back, relax, let me tell you a story. Today's story is called The Adventures of KhAnubis with a K, Book 1, Egypt, written by Tracy Lee Thompson. KhAnubis, fourth cousin to Anubis, they think, is not your typical god in training. His magic is unpredictable. His ears are too big, and his robes are usually on fire. But when he's unexpectedly chosen by Ra, Bastet, and Thoth to carry the next spark into the modern world, everything changes. Assigned to 21st century Earth under deep and slightly glitchy disguise as a museum janitor named Alexander, KhAnubis quickly discovers that the magic humanity once knew isn't gone. It's just hiding in the corners, waiting to be noticed. With a mop that doubles as a divine antenna, a cosmic navigation pyramid named Wedge, and a sentient plush camel named Thoth, KhAnubis stumbles into a forgotten hallway beneath the Cairo Museum. There he meets Ameen, a sideways-seeing Earth kid with a granola bar, excellent instincts, and a destiny no one saw coming. Together, they uncover lost stories, unlock ancient glyphs, and accidentally trigger a hidden archive that's been waiting centuries for someone just weird enough to wake it up. But something else has noticed too. Chaos is stirring beneath the city. The museum remembers, and a new myth is beginning to write itself, one mop tile at a time. Let's get into it. Prelude. The sun over ancient Egypt didn't rise. It announced itself. Golden light poured across temple rooftops, bounced off sandstone columns, and swept over the desert like a ceremonial trumpet blast. Everything shimmered. The Nile's surface like molten glass, the pyramids casting impossibly long shadows, and the very air tingling with ancient static. The heat came next, not oppressive, commanding, like a hot towel over the shoulders from someone who very much expected results. Somewhere in the outer rim of Luxor, beneath a cracked sandstone structure marked Employment Intake, Lesser Divinities Division, KhAnubis paced. Not strutted, not slouched, paced, like a being who'd read the assignment, underlined the key words, and still wasn't sure if the teacher liked his handwriting. "Deep breaths," he muttered. "You've got this. You haven't set anything on fire in what, 4 days? That's growth." KhAnubis wasn't like the others, not yet. His jackal ears were a little too big, his cloak too rumpled. His magical signatures tended to come out upside down. He always seemed to trail a bit of cosmic lint behind him, no matter how many times he brushed his robes. But his heart, his weird, fiercely loyal, sun-baked heart, was tuned like a bell to one clear note. He wanted to help, and that made him dangerous. Inside the intake hall, Ra himself sat behind the approval bench, sunglasses over one eye, sipping some sort of nectar espresso hybrid from a golden chalice shaped like a goose. He didn't need to be here. It was the kind of task usually passed down to departmental interns or sentient scrolls, but he liked to watch the weird ones. KhAnubis approached the dais with the enthusiasm of someone trying to make eye contact and avoid it at the same time. "Name?" barked the clerk god beside Ra, scribbling on a papyrus scroll with a pen that blinked like a firefly. "KhAnubis, with the K." The pen froze mid-scribble. Ra looked over his sunglasses. "With a K?" "Yes, sir. Fourth cousin to Anubis, we think. The lineage map is kind of smudged." Ra squinted, then grinned. "Oh, you're the one who turned the Eye of Horus into a cookie cutter." "That was one time. And I did bring cookies. They were burnt. They were symbolic. Ra chuckled. You're on the short list. Final interview is at sunset behind the Sphinx's left ear. Don't be late. The Sphinx hates late. KhAnubis blinked. Wait, really? Ra raised a single eyebrow. Too many apps, he muttered, standing up with a stretch that cracked the sky open with a tiny bolt of lightning. Not enough naps. He vanished in a flare of sunbeam and glitter. KhAnubis stood frozen, scroll clutched in both hands, tail twitching. Then he grinned. He was finally going to have a say. Sunset in Egypt didn't just cast shadows, it summoned them. The horizon bled gold and violet while the dunes turned to slow-moving waves, whispering secrets between grains. The great Sphinx, stoic and massive, loomed like it always had, except tonight, its left ear was twitching. KhAnubis stood at the base of its enormous paw, trying not to sweat through his ceremonial linen. Okay, he whispered to himself. Breathe, stand tall, do not step in anything mythical. The Sphinx groaned as it shifted. A single glowing eye flicked open and looked down at him. The voice that came next sounded like sandpaper dragged across a vinyl record. You're early. Better than late, KhAnubis offered. Barely, the Sphinx muttered. Climb up the back leg. You'll find the door. Don't knock. It's rude. Climbing an ancient celestial guardian's haunch was harder than it looked. The sandstone felt oddly warm, like sun-baked fur, and occasionally made a sound as he stepped on a sensitive spot. The door, an actual circular stone with a knob shaped like a crocodile playing a lyre, opened as soon as he reached it. Inside was less majestic than he'd expected. It smelled faintly of incense and something suspiciously like beet chips. Gold-lined benches circled a glowing table made of moonstone, covered in hieroglyphs that rearranged themselves when stared at too long. It was the kind of room designed by someone who had just learned what humans found mysterious and ran with it. Ra lounged on one of the benches, sandals off, humming to himself while sketching hieroglyphs of sandwiches on the table. Across from him sat Bastet, brushing her whiskers with a comb made of pearl and sass. Thoth was there too, trying to fold a piece of papyrus into a crane with 16 wings. KhAnubis froze in the doorway. Ra looked up. Hey, look who didn't explode anything on the way in. I wasn't planning to. Progress, Bastet purred. Thoth didn't look up. Did anyone tell him yet? Tell me what? KhAnubis asked carefully. Ra stood, walked around the table, and placed both hands on KhAnubis's shoulders. You've been chosen, he said, voice surprisingly soft. To carry the next spark, you're getting your own assignment. KhAnubis blinked. A temple? Ra shook his head. A team? Nope. A camel? Definitely not. Then what? Bastet grinned. You're going to Earth. KhAnubis blinked again. I am on Earth. Thoth chuckled darkly. Not this Earth. The current one. 21st century Earth. The messy one with apps and oat milk. Where everyone forgot what magic feels like, Ra added. Bastet leaned in. You'll blend in, sort of. Technically. You want me, KhAnubis said slowly, to help a planet that forgot the gods by reminding them? Ra handed him a scroll.
You'll remind them how to laugh, he said, and why weird matters.
And just like that, the table lit up, the Sphinx snorted a small sandstorm through her nose, and KhAnubis was marked. Not with a crown or a sword, with a tiny glowing beetle that zipped up his sleeve and parked itself on his collarbone like a glittering name tag.
Good luck, kid,
Ross said, turning toward the side door that led to nowhere.
You leave in the morning. Don't oversleep. The Nile gets cranky when we run late.
Chapter 1. KhAnubis woke up with sand in his ears and his mouth, and somehow in his elbow. The room around him pulsed gently with warm amber light. A series of sandstone archways carved with soft, shifting glyphs lined the far wall. Thin gauze curtains fluttered in the breeze that slipped through a half-open sky vent in the ceiling. It smelled faintly of papyrus, toasted dates, and whatever Ra's midnight snack had been. He coughed and rolled over. Sand slid out of his blanket in a gritty avalanche and pulled against the floor tiles like it had followed him home from the dunes and made itself comfortable. Unbelievable, he muttered, sitting up. How does the desert get into my bed when I haven't even left yet? The room, his assigned quarters in the Celestial Relay Annex beneath Luxor, was technically private. Small, tucked into the lower level, and charmed against time leaks. But privacy was relative when the walls occasionally hummed to themselves or let in gossiping wind spirits by mistake. KhAnubis stretched. His joints popped in 3 languages. The low morning light made his fur shimmer, black with undertones of violet and indigo, shifting slightly under different angles like dusk trapped under velvet. His ceremonial linen robe hung from a hook beside the doorway, still slightly singed from yesterday's accident involving the incense burner and Thoth's experimental scroll. Across the room, a stone pedestal doubled as a nightstand/altar. On it sat a few essentials: a cracked mirror rimmed with a meteorite dust, a scroll tied with an obsidian beetle clasp, a half-empty mug shaped like a goose, Ra's espresso cup left behind during an unscheduled check-in, and a fig. The fig was still warm, probably divine interference, or Bastet being extra. The room was dry, warm, and full of quiet potential, the kind of space that didn't mind being small because it hummed with purpose. Today's wasn't just another test. Today he was leaving. A flicker of nervous energy tickled the tips of his ears. I'm actually doing this, he whispered. I'm going. They picked me. He stood and took a deep breath, letting the air settle in his lungs. No pressure. Just the fate of a sleeping myth network, a half-lost planet, and one glitchy jackal in rumpled linen. A soft beep chimed near the ceiling, then again, sharper. KhAnubis turned just as a floating pyramid-shaped device unhooked itself from the wall niche and hovered towards him. Its surface was black glass etched with gold runes that blinked like thoughtful fireflies. Small stabilizer wings rotated gently at its corners, giving it the attitude of a librarian with a secret. Wedge. Assigned to him 2 weeks ago, Wedge was technically a trans-dimensional navigation assistant, but in practice, he was a hovering cosmic backseat driver with a dry sense of humor and exactly 0 patience for mystical tardiness. Wedge pulsed red. I'm up, KhAnubis groaned. I'm up. Wedge projected a glyph in midair. Departure in 14 minutes. Error margin unacceptable. KhAnubis grabbed his robe, wrestled it over his head, and immediately got tangled in the shoulder loop. Wedge spun slowly, unhelpfully. Don't judge me, KhAnubis muttered. This robe has corners. He finally got it on, reached for the scroll, and tucked the fig into his belt pouch for later. The mirror flashed once, reflecting not his face, but a strange, faraway version of it, the kind of reflection you only saw when a story had already begun without you. He paused. Outside the sky vent, the sun was rising. No birds, just heat and the echo of Ra's soft laugh somewhere high above the annex. "Okay," KhAnubis whispered to himself, squaring his shoulders. "Let's go meet Earth." He stepped into the corridor, sand still in his fur, heart pounding like a drum built for better gods, and followed Wedge towards the launch chamber. Chapter 2. The departure chamber smelled like sun-warmed copper and unfinished decisions. KhAnubis stood in the center of the celestial relay annex, ceremonial robe flapping gently in the static charged breeze, staring into the swirling sand-streaked portal shaped like a sideways hourglass. The entire space shimmered, part temple, part launchpad, part bureaucratic fever dream. One of the pillars was humming the wrong frequency, but no one seemed to care. Wedge hovered nearby, projecting countdown glyphs and subtle disapproval. "Departure in 6 minutes," KhAnubis muttered to himself. Plenty of time to completely unravel. He took a deep breath. The air was dry and thick with ozone. Overhead, the sky vent was fully open now, revealing a sliver of early light and one very smug-looking ibis gliding past like it knew something he didn't. KhAnubis adjusted his collar. His heart was doing a weird mix of excited drumbeat and interpretive jazz. This was really happening. He was going to Earth, not just visiting, not running an errand or fetching another cursed scroll from the Duat archive. This was an assignment. His assignment. Ra had said so. Bastet had winked. Thoth had sort of nodded. Probably. "All right," he said, rolling his shoulders. "Let's go be weird." The portal gave a polite chime. Ding! Like a toaster that knew too much. KhAnubis stepped in. Falling was not part of the official transition sequence, but he did anyway. The sand stream caught him like a cosmic riptide, whipping him forward, down, and vaguely sideways through folds of compressed story fields. Light bent, sound ducked. At one point, he passed a flying camel that saluted him with a banana peel. "What?" he tried to shout, but the wind stole his words and handed him a fig. Time hiccuped. He blinked and slammed straight into Earth. He landed face first in a mop bucket. It was blue, it was full, and it did not care about his dignity. Cold water soaked through his robe. His knees hit tile. A roll of paper towels bounced off his head and thumped to the floor with a kind of ceremonial finality. "Arrived," muttered the mop bucket. KhAnubis groaned. The small storage room around him was dim and oddly chilly. Shelves lined the walls, packed with cleaning supplies, unopened air fresheners, and a pyramid-shaped wet floor sign with googly eyes someone had definitely added without divine approval. He sat up, dripping. The door bore a sticker. "Maintenance, staff only. Do not question the janitor." Wedge floated in behind him, miraculously dry and smug as ever. "Could have warned me," KhAnubis muttered. Wedge spun once and projected a cheery glyph. "Disguise mode ready. Please assume form. Alexander." With a wheep of energy, his morph field activated. His long snout faded. His ears reshaped. His ceremonial robe dissolved into well-worn khakis, a utility belt with zip ties, and a hoodie embroidered with Cairo Museum temp crew. His badge blinked to life. Alexander. His mop, now a long-handled tool with glowing accents no one else would see, hovered politely at his side. He squinted at the mirror, bolted to the inside of the maintenance closet door. Gone was the jackal-eared celestial with cosmic glint on his sleeves. In his place stood a human mad, maybe mid-20s, with warm bronze skin, soft features, and a mop of loose curls barely contained beneath a museum-issued ball cap. His eyes were dark, curious, and slightly too reflective, like they'd been coated from starlight and were still getting used to having irises. He looked tired, but not unkind, like someone who offered directions even when he didn't work there. His oversized hoodie hung awkwardly on his narrow shoulders. The name stitched into the badge at his chest read Alexander. The embroidery was fading. The X looked like it had been re-stitched by someone who didn't believe in straight lines. He tilted his head. "Okay, Alexander," he whispered. "Be casual. Be normal. Don't accidentally glow." He opened the door and stepped out. The hallway beyond was cooler than he expected. A subtle rush of air flowed from unseen vents, carrying with it a blend of lemon polish, marble dust, and something ancient, not decayed, just waiting. The Cairo Museum of Antiquities stretched out around him like a half-awake animal, drowsy but coiled, holding centuries of breath between its teeth. He moved slowly, mop in hand. Vaulted ceilings arched overhead in smooth sandstone curves. Spotlights flickered across high cornices, illuminating carved lions, falcons, and gods who had once governed entire empires, and now guarded security cameras and motion sensors instead. KhAnubis, Alexander, walked with quiet reverence. He passed towering statues, cracked along fault lines older than some planets. He passed tall, flat stone slabs, hand-carved with deeply etched hieroglyphs and prayers, known as stelae, an ancient public notice board or spiritual plaque, except sacred, artistic, and built to last for millennia. There was a rhythm in the way everything was placed, relics encased in glass, fragments catalogued and labeled, rooms arranged like altars rebranded as education. To his left, a seal stone doorway embedded in the floor read, "Not yet open to the public." To his right, a vending machine labeled refreshments spat out a bag of wasabi peas for no one. He smiled. "They still hum," he whispered, running his fingers across the glass case of a 3,000-year-old mirror. "They're still alive in here. You just don't hear it anymore." Wedge beeped once in agreement from inside the pocket of his hoodie. He kept walking. The museum wasn't quiet. Not really. It was listening. The museum hall opened before him like a puzzle that had just exhaled. Cool air met his face, marble tiles stretched beneath his boots. Above him, the high arches of the Egyptian wing curved like ribs, ancient, shadowed, echoing with footsteps that didn't belong to anyone anymore. He moved slowly. The mop beeped once, then again. To his left, a towering statue of Anubis in jackal form, standing silent and severe. KhAnubis gave it a respectful nod. "Hi, probably cousin. Don't judge the outfit." To his right, an exhibit titled Tools of the Afterlife. It was creative. The display included a plastic lunchbox with a falcon sticker, a cheaply printed scroll that curled from humidity, and an ankh made of clear acrylic that lit up blue whenever someone walked by, blinking like it needed a nap. A sign beside it read, "Authentic replicas, based on probable spiritual assumptions." KhAnubis tilted his head. "That's not how assumptions work." He turned in a slow circle, taking in the hall again. It was enormous. Vaulted stone ribs arched above like the belly of some ancient mythical beast. The displays stretched in both directions, solemn statues shadowed alcoves, reverent silence punctuated by the occasional beep from a tour group wristband. The air buzzed faintly with air conditioning and suppressed magic. He looked down at the mop in his hand. It hadn't been part of the original plan, not technically, but no one had stopped him when he took it from the closet, and the more he held it, the more it felt right. Low profile, wand-shaped, slightly ridiculous. He could scan quietly while pretending to clean, blend in, observe, help without disrupting the local timeline. He gave the mop a cautious swish. It beeped approvingly. A swirl of dust caught the light behind him like a miniature sandstorm doing interpretive dance. KhAnubis nodded. "This is it," he whispered. "This is how I save Earth." Wedge, still tucked invisibly inside his hoodie pocket, emitted a slow blink that may have meant, "Please don't." Too late. KhAnubis squared his shoulders, adjusted his badge, and rolled into motion. He was now officially mopping between timelines. The gods might have chosen warriors, kings, or prophets in ages past. This time, they were sending in the janitor. By late morning, the crowds had begun to trickle in. KhAnubis watched as school children spilled across the floor like slightly loud blessings. Their chatter echoed through the exhibit halls, curious, unfiltered, beautifully chaotic. He sidestepped a rogue juice box, scanned an enchanted coin pedestal, and tried very hard not to sparkle under pressure. Then the mop beeped again. Not a regular boop. This one came with a glyph warning. He turned. In the far corner of the Egyptian wing, past a half-lit sarcophagus and an ancient stone basin that had never stopped leaking hope, stood a modest exhibit. The Eye of Ra collection. It was small, tucked away, easy to miss. A single artifact sat behind the velvet rope, an unmarked sarcophagus, undated, unattributed, and very much humming. The plaque read, "Donation. No known origin. Do not open." KhAnubis stepped closer. The air here felt interested, like the room was leaning in. He knelt beside the rope and placed a hand on the floor. The tile beneath his palm vibrated with a quiet purpose, a beacon. One of the old ones, still alive, still listening. A voice echoed behind him. "Hey, mister!" KhAnubis turned. A group of kids stared up at him, eyes wide. One held out a slightly squished granola bar. "This is for you. My grandpa says weirdos need snacks more than regular people." KhAnubis accepted it with reverence. "Thank you," he said. The boy grinned. "I like your mop. It sparkles funny." Behind KhAnubis, the sarcophagus pulsed once, barely visible, but enough. Enough for the story to begin folding open. Chapter 3. By late morning, the museum began to fill, and the magic noticed. KhAnubis stood at the edge of the Egyptian wing, mop in hand, hoodie loose, eyes bright. He'd been mopping for exactly 40 minutes, scanned 4 display pedestals, realigned 1 mislabeled godstone, and quietly reversed the polarity of an anti-wonder charm someone had accidentally placed near the bathrooms in 1987. The floor was technically cleaner, but more importantly, the pulse under the marble was louder. The people were waking it up. A tour group rounded the corner, maybe 24 visitors, half of them buzzing children in bright school shirts. KhAnubis watched as the first kid crossed the sandstone threshold, and the nearest statue flinched. Not visibly, not to anyone else, but the air around it crackled just faintly, like static deciding whether or not to become lightning. He grinned. The adults moved through the room like they were inside a library made of eggshells, shoulders hunched, eyes on plaques, walking as if reverence meant silence. But the kids ran. They pointed, they whispered, they got close to the glass and licked things. They trailed curiosity behind them like glowing ribbons, and the museum responded. The glyphs beneath one display shimmered when a girl laughed. The eye of Horus statue blinked faintly when a boy sneezed on it. One ancient measuring tool moved a fraction of an inch when someone sang into their juice box. KhAnubis wasn't surprised. He'd studied these phenomena for millennia, but watching it live, watching Earth's magic stretch and stir like a cat who just remembered it had claws, that was something else. He stepped back and leaned against the wall beside a massive obsidian jackal. Wedge buzzed quietly in his hoodie pocket, projecting faint diagnostic glyphs he wasn't even pretending to look at. His gaze stayed locked on the humans, their awkward joy, their elbowing and giggles, and questions that made the exhibits twitch. A woman with braids and a lion tattoo brushed past the Sekhmet statue, and the torch glyph on its chest flickered. A young man in a faded hoodie stopped to sketch a scarab. His pencil moved too fast to be copying. The museum's energy rose with them, reacting, testing, choosing. Not everyone made it hum, but some left trails. KhAnubis tracked them with a half smile, mop resting over his shoulder like a divine antenna. "All right," he murmured. "Now we're talking." The Eye of Ra alcove was quieter. Tucked back beyond the major displays, it held only one artifact, a modest sarcophagus with no official date, no origin story, and a plaque that read, "Donation, unverified, do not open." Underneath in pen, "Seriously, Daryl." KhAnubis stepped closer. He'd passed this thing twice already, but now the energy had loosened. A heartbeat under the stone, faint but hungry. He pressed one palm to the tile and felt it, pulsing like a story waiting for a brave sentence. Wedge pinged. The glyph flashed. Beacon initiating. KhAnubis grinned wide. About time. Then, "Hey, mister!" He turned around. A kid, maybe 9, stood just behind the velvet rope, holding a slightly smushed granola bar in one hand and a fig in the other. His curls were wild. His shirt was half tucked. His eyes were the kind that didn't just see, they read. "You look like you're not, really a janitor," the boy said. KhAnubis straightened. "I look like a janitor with purpose." The boy extended the fig. "In stories, the weird ones were always like these." KhAnubis took it. It was warm. "Thanks," he said, suddenly aware that the sarcophagus behind him had just shivered. "I'm Ameen," said the boy. "My grandpa says I see sideways." KhAnubis smiled, heart rising. "Well then, Ameen," he said, "want to help me do something really wildly irresponsible?" The fig pulsed once, and the wall beside the exhibit blinked, just slightly, like a door remembering how to open. Chapter 4. The moment the fig changed temperature in his hand, KhAnubis knew the doorway was real. Not metaphor real, real, the kind that required caution, bravery, and possibly snacks. A faint click echoed through the alcove as the sandstone wall beside the Eye of Ra exhibit wavered, like light shining through water. Glyphs shimmered across the surface, then the wall folded inward, revealing a narrow archway where none had been seconds ago. It smelled like old spice racks, thunderclouds, and forgotten music. KhAnubis turned to Ameen, who was already halfway through the opening. He pushed the curtain of light aside like it was a doorway into his own imagination. This place smells like thunderstorms and old books, he said, grinning. I love it already. He turned to look back at KhAnubis, eyes wide. Do real gods always have secret passages? KhAnubis smirked. Only the stylish ones. Hey, wait, you're not even slightly hesitant? Ameen looked back, deadpan. You said wildly irresponsible. I assumed we were doing it. KhAnubis snorted and followed. Inside, the air changed. It was warmer here, still, but charged, like static lived in the walls. The corridor was long and oddly curved, like it had grown by accident or whim. KhAnubis ran his hand along the shifting wall. It tingled beneath his fingers, not hostile, just shy. These glyphs aren't static. This place is reacting to us, he murmured, half to Wedge, half to the wall. He wasn't surprised. He was trained for this, but still. Earth had its own flavor of enchantment. Weird, sticky, personal. He liked it. The floor beneath them was smooth, but not modern. Soft golden stone that gave just slightly with each step. The walls, alive. Not pulsing or glowing, fluctuating. Glyphs moved gently across the surface like silt in a river current. Hieroglyphs one moment, circuit diagrams the next, then spirals made of dancing beetles. The symbols didn't scroll, they breathed. This is wild, Ameen whispered, eyes wide. Like the museum dreamed a hallway and forgot to delete it. KhAnubis nodded. Or maybe the museum remembered. Wedge flickered out of his hoodie pocket and hovered just over his shoulder. The little pyramid emitted a soft, diagnostic whine. KhAnubis glanced at it. What's the verdict? Wedge projected. Temporal layering detected. Dimensional drift 7%. Object anomaly count 1. Before KhAnubis could respond, a small door blinked open in the floor, not dramatically, just a subtle ka-chick, followed by a polite puff of glitter. And then a plush camel slowly rose from the opening. Its button eyes blinked independently. Its fur looked slightly scorched on one side. A tag on its rear end read, Warm Spiral Archive, Object 0007, Name, Toast. It stared at them, then sneezed. Ameen gasped. I love him! KhAnubis crouched. Do you come with instructions? Toast blinked, then flopped dramatically onto his side and refused to move. I think that's a yes, Ameen said. KhAnubis gently picked up the plush camel and tucked him under one arm. All right, Toast, welcome to the mission. At the end of the corridor, the path split. To the left, a staircase spiraling downward into a glow that buzzed like bottled laughter. To the right, a curved ramp lined with floating panels displaying memories, not photographs or artifacts, moments. A girl braiding her grandmother's hair, a boy writing in chalk on the sidewalk that hadn't existed in 4,000 years, someone planting a garden where war used to be. KhAnubis paused. These aren't from here. They're from Earth, Ameen said quietly, but not the part the museum shows. Wedge beeped. A new glyph appeared overhead. Curiosity is the key. Truth opens when touched. Touch carefully. KhAnubis looked down at Toast. Toast wiggled once. Ameen knelt down beside the plush camel and offered a solemn nod. He's not just a toy. KhAnubis raised a brow. He's a sidekick, Ameen added. All the best stories have one. Toast licked the side of Ameen's hoodie and settled in like he'd just been promoted. I vote we touch everything, Ameen said. KhAnubis grinned. Stars help us. I agree. And together they walked deeper into the hall of nearly forgotten things, where Earth's real stories had been hiding just beneath the surface all along. And that's it for today. Thank you for joining me for Echoes of My Imagination. My name is Tracy Lee. I hope you enjoyed part 1 of KhAnubis, Book 1, Egypt. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and follow. And I'll catch you next time.